So let's get started. So Dove, you had the first item on the agenda.
Yeah, we had a chat with Ruben this morning. He's not in this call, but he asked me to raise this. So I want to get some naming suggestion for the self-monitoring project. Right now, it is called GitLab Instance Administration. I've listed a few suggestions that I have. I saw that Diraj and Jose added the +1. You can add other if you have any brilliant ideas about the naming. We can wait for the decision, I guess, in the next following few days. So,
come on now, Dove. The thing is, there are two main problems in software engineering: naming, performance, and off by one errors.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, but that's just, I guess the GitLab self-monitoring is the leading one for now. But if someone wants to try his luck, then feel free. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Should probably step back and say welcome to Andre. Hello, thank you for joining.
Nice meeting you for the
yeah,
first
you
time.
just started yesterday. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, welcome to the team. Glad to have you here.
Glad to meet all of you.
Yeah. Do you want to just give a real quick 1-minute overview of kind of where you were before GitLab and kind of where in the world you're located?
Well, I'm located in Cluj-Napoca in Romania. It's situated in Transylvania. I think you heard about this area from pop culture, maybe. And yeah, I've been working as a front-end developer for the past, say, 5 years. And I've been in design also. I pretty much see the web as the next Gutenbergian revolution. So I'm pretty enthusiastic to work in this domain.
Great. Well, thank you. Welcome, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Also.
Yeah. All right. So then moving on. So I just wanted to bring this up, and I'm nominating David to talk about it, but we had a kind of a urgent issue come up around metrics. So Dave, if you want to give a little background of what happened and what you found out, because it's kind of interesting.
So yeah, I told Matt that things like this are both my superpower and my kryptonite. I do like looking at these kind of issues. So if you look at that issue 37.387, it's about Prometheus metrics are missing for some sidekick processes. And it took me a little while to catch up with Andrew and the others. But I finally did. And so what the problem was that, see if I've got a Prometheus handy here. That's got this information in it. So if we look at your tab, so I'm looking at the Thanos thing here, and they said that there should be like 8 of these Prometheus these sidekick jobs running at any time, but we're only seeing like 4 come back from this sidekick pipeline number 8 here, and the money line is this PID thing, and I didn't know about this PID until I started looking at it. But in the Prometheus client that we use, I assume you can see my screen. In the Prometheus client that we use, we have a way of providing a PID provider that instead of giving it the PID of 8,295 or whatever, and it changes every time the Sidekick restarts, we send in an environment variable, whatever, and it can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that way, always we see consistent metrics for Sidekick 5. We don't see it changing around, because that is one of the big things with some of the metrics is that when the machine, like in Kubernetes, the machine goes down and comes back up, you got a different pod, and it's the metrics change all the time. So anyway, we do that, but there's only 4 Sidekicks running here on this number 8 box here, and I'm going to change this to 7, and let's see if it comes back. So 7's only got 3 running, and number 1 has got probably just a couple running, or 1 running, or something like that. So so the problem is that he said, okay, so there are 3 running for number 1. So the problem was that we're not getting Sidekick jobs, enough Sidekick jobs running or whatever. So if you look through that issue, Andrew, teed it up just right for. If we look on down a ways, there's a conversation about, hey, there's a bunch of metrics files that have been deleted. If you start looking at our Prometheus client that we use, that thing creates a file. It's a memory mapped file for providing metrics, so that it's kind of global to the machine type thing. So I've got my GDK shut down over here, but so I'm on my master branch. So if I start this up and then look at these open files with LSOF, I'm actually going to have to take this down with LSOF minus W and grep for the Sidekick directory. So it'll be like directory.sidekick. So there are no deleted files out here yet. But if we wait around a few minutes and look back out here, some of these files are going to start getting deleted on my local box, which was lucky for me, because I didn't have to have production access to go root around to diagnose this thing. So that was that's the first thing I always do, is say, hey, can I get this thing going on my local box? Can I reproduce this on my local box? So so now there's a bunch of deleted files out there. So if I look at our old friend, this thing called Prometheus Cleanup Multiproc dir service, that thing just goes out there and says delete some files, delete all of the files that are associated with the Prometheus stuff that we're storing somewhere. In Unix, when you delete a file, and somebody's already got that file open, then some process has got it open, that process still has it open. It still keeps reading that file or writing that file, regardless of the fact that some other process deleted it. And when they close it, the file goes away. So that's a way, typical thing is like, hey, my server's running out of disk space and I've deleted all the files. Well, you can delete the files, but the disk space doesn't come back until the writing process closes it, but no other processes can see it. So what I think is happening here is that we fire up 8 processes on this box to run some Sidekick jobs, and the last one deletes a lot of the files from the first few, and those are not getting reported through to Prometheus anymore because the file show is deleted, but they're still open. They're still being written to, but they're just not accessible to read. So what I did was was here in this multi-process directory structure. I checked the file. I checked to see if the file is unlinkable. So I checked to see if I can exclusively lock the file. And if I can, then it must not be opened by somebody else, and I go ahead and delete it. And the way I found that was I looked around in the Prometheus client mmap project to see what it did, and it does this file non-blocking file, exclusive lock business. So so that's the way I was able to tell if a file was open and in use by something or not, or it was a dead file that was left around from some process that died or was killed during a release or something. So talked about it in a few minutes here. It seems like it's pretty easy to figure out, but bent my antlers a little bit going through catching up with some of the SREs and then figuring out, okay, I think this is what it is. But so I got an MR out there. We'll see if that can fix it.
Cool. Yeah, that's a very strange technical problem. It also brings up a point where, so I put the link to a possibly related one. So we're using a older forked version of the Prometheus client, Ruby client, right? And was this, so you said you found this fix in or something similar to this oh, you're on mute, David.
I looked in that file to see how it was manipulating these files and what it was doing with the files, because it does store them in files, because the regular Ruby client for every process I think it stores the metrics in memory. So there's never a situation where something's gone. But in that case, say we've got 8 sidekicks running on one box, we'd have to have 8 different endpoints to read metrics from on that one box, and anything's on that box. So in this case, I believe the Prometheus metrics guy could go out there, pull all the files, send all the metrics back for all the processes just from one endpoint, which is kind of handy.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, kind of what I was getting at is that we might want to think about how we get off of this kind of older forked version, which is something we've been thinking about for, I don't know, months, almost a year. But that's in there. So
yeah, Ben is definitely suggesting that we get off of it, and the thing we forked from has moved forward, and we've not kept those changes in our version. So there's some divergence that's happened between those.
Yeah, I guess we're carrying technical depth because of that. The question is, what's the effort here on upgrading the Ruby client?
Well, as you can see, we've built our castle on this thing. So there are a few things that we would have to change, in the code to switch over to that thing, and then get a really good idea of how we're leveraging this in our infrastructure, and if any of our customers have leveraged it in their infrastructure as well. So I mean, it's not insurmountable, certainly, but it's we got to be real careful with it. Is the only thing. I mean, Ben would have already done it if it was I'm not saying if it was easy. If it was just moderately hard, he would have already, started pecking on it. But I think it's tough-ish.
All right, so maybe we can. It has also bounced around between teams a little bit. So now it seems to be back in our court as of yesterday or something. So maybe we can comment or discuss a little more.
Maybe because of the problem that happened to them. And so if we had the upgraded Ruby client, will this problem be going away, or will we still experience this problem? The issue that David, that you investigated.
Yeah, it would not. I don't think this issue would have we wouldn't have seen this issue at all. And it's just because, we made a few, design choices that, were not necessarily shortcuts, but they were, things that gave us the ability to satisfy our unique needs in the in GitLab.com world.
Okay. So I think we can, so we'll work on that related issue and figure out maybe there's some ways we can start on it without having to finish the process, or break it down a little bit so we can, or at least do some investigation to figure out.
Yeah, we may be able to move some ancillary projects over and kind of get a good idea of what it's doing, and then save GitLab proper and the psychic jobs and stuff for the last thing.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that information. All right. The next thing on the agenda is I'm going to talk a little bit about this dashboard that we have some team metrics. So I put the link in there. I'll show it too. As a kind of engineering organization, we've been having a kind of a renewed focus on some of our metrics. So I put together this dashboard with help from a number of other teams have been providing some input too, but I just wanted to make sure everyone has seen this, and I can kind of talk through a little bit about some of the stuff we're measuring. So I'll give a quick overview of what's on here. So throughput is just a count of how many MRs we've merged, which is one of the KPIs we have as a engineering organization. So we have it by month, by week, by milestone. And then we also have a chart that's another KPI is how many per engineer. So you can see the red line here is like the team size, and the green is the average MRs per engineer. And the purple is just a count, which just matches what's up here. So that's one thing. Then there's some information about which bugs we have. So we have a lot of open bugs, and it breaks it down by priority and severity. Some of this, part of the drive for this dashboard, we used to have a quality dashboard, it was called, that had a lot of this information on it that was used, and that is going away because we want to use Periscope for everything. I should say too, if you don't have access to Periscope, everyone should have at least read access to it, but if you don't, we can work on that. So yeah, there's some information about bugs. Looks like there's one right now that doesn't have priority or severity. Just a little more kind of drilling down into some details, like merge requests that don't have group APM labeled on them. Group APM is kind of the label we use for all of these metrics at the top. So if it's missing that, then we're not counting everything. And also if it's missing one of these kind of types, feature, backstage bug, or security, it finds those, because there's like somewhere in here, there's undefined, one at the bottom of this chart. So there's an undefined one, and that's what that one is. I think that's about it. And then another metric we look at is how long it's taken to merge an MR. So these are kind of two different ways just to measure how long an MR has been in review, basically. They're not perfect, but it's a way to get there. And these are all just for our team. Yeah. And the bottom is just how big our team is and how it's been growing over time from an engineering side. So does anyone have any questions about this?
Wonder if some of those metrics here are not metrics that should be a part of GitLab, the product itself.
Yep, that could be it. I think, I'm trying to remember, there's some like psychoanalytic type stuff I think we have, but you're right. That would be, some of it probably could be, because I think, so I created this one, a number of other teams are creating very similar or cloning this or working on similar things, but it would be nice if you could just filter it by automatically in GitLab, because all Periscope, I think, is doing is dumping like data from either the GitLab. I don't think it uses the GitLab API. I think it pulls information, and maybe it is from the API, but pulls it into like a data source that Periscope can use. But yeah, all of this we could just create the same thing with just the current GitLab APIs, because it's just looking at issue data, mostly just issue data and merge request information. So, so yeah, if anyone has ideas of things that we would like to track or follow up on, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. The stuff that's on here now is kind of are things that are related to kind of KPIs that we track as an engineering organization. So that's kind of why I started with that, but we can certainly expand this to include any other information that would be useful for our team. So just wanted to share, just so everyone at least could see that we have this data, and if you ever are curious, you can kind of take a look at it.
Yeah, I'll reach out. I have some issues getting data. I mean, how skilled you are in getting data from Periscope. I see that you created this dashboard, so I'll probably reach out and use your skills on that.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds good. Yeah, I've been, it's kind of been a crash course in Periscope. So, but basically all of these charts are just kind of just SQL queries against different data sources. So in the back end, it's not that complicated, and then you just put the whatever kind of chart you want on it. So, but yeah, let me know if you need some help.
Thanks.
Okay, so that was that. One other thing, I just we don't have to discuss it too much here. I just opened a merge request, but Dove and Adriel and I had talked a little bit about at one point using, there's a workflow label called planning. What is it? Planning breakdown?
Yeah, workflow planning breakdown. Yeah.
Which I think Dove, you applied it to one issue already, which is cool.
Three issues.
3 issues. All right, nice. A little behind, but yeah. So then the idea, you can look at the MR and we can discuss it there. But the idea for that workflow label, and I link, there's someplace in the handbook which maybe I have to fix, but fix the link. But in the handbook under the product development flow, it kind of talks about all these different workflow statuses, and one of them is this planning breakdown, which seems to say like, hey, we kind of done with the planning of this issue, but now we have to figure out the implementation details. So my recommendation is that our team starts using this as a kind of a first step in breaking issues down further. So I would love some comments or feedback on that.
Yeah, basically the section in the handbook that discuss this entire workflow start from like, I think backlog planning, and then problem validation, and then solution validation, and then planning breakdown. Some features that we are building are going through this entire validation track. So you may end up seeing like research issues. So this is where normally myself and Emilia and a UX researcher are doing the work for researching an issue. For instance, tracing to minimal, and we know that we want to get there. We don't know exactly what features are required in order for tracing to be minimal. So we started with the problem validation track. We are interviewing customers. Once we will interview the customer, we will know better. We will move from problem validation to solution validation to better understand what are the features that we want to build. And then we will go with we will apply the label for planning breakdown, where we are breaking down each feature into iteration. So this is where the build track started. So the build phase. This is the entire flow. So just to give the perspective of where is it coming from. So some issues start from planning breakdown. Some issues start immediately in the build phase. But if we want to go by the book, issues should start with this validation flow and all the way to the build track. Yeah. So this is where the labels are coming from. Those labels.
Yeah, great. And then just to follow on after planning breakdown, it's the same labels that we already use: ready for development, in review, which is what I think we're pretty much doing already. But I just like that the addition of this step before, because I think, as we kind of talked about before, I think we've struggled a little bit with breaking issues down from a kind of an engineering perspective, getting them to like iterable, driving iteration and getting small pieces. And I think this could help that a lot. So
yeah.
Just wanted to, so people have thoughts or comments, feel free to comment on this MR, and we can work on that. And then this is against the handbook so we can just try using this and see how it goes. Okay.
Next one is me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I prepared a short blog on the logging effort that we are doing with respect to Elasticsearch. Feel free to read through in your spare time, add your comments, feedbacks, typos, whatever things is needed. Feel free. This blog post, I prepared to release it, to launch it straightly after we'll have the Elasticsearch available. Not sure if it's in this end of this iteration or the next one. We need to sync with Adria. I think he's doing the heavy weighting there. But yeah.
I love hearing you talk about pillars of observability and stuff. That's good stuff. I never heard of that.
Yeah.
Sounds real professional. That's good. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The three pillars of observability. I mean, we can maybe discuss this a bit, but there is like a handful of articles that define how monitored had evolved from being just like, let's measure the metrics, evolve into logs, traces, and we can see a consolidation in the market where, take Elasticsearch as an example, started with logs, add metrics, and now traces. Take Datadog, started with metrics, then traces, and now logs. They purchased Logmatic a few years ago. So there is even Splunk. So there is a lot of consolidation in the market, and a realization that monitoring had evolved beyond just being monitoring. And this is why this whole concept of observability emerged a couple of years ago already. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting stuff reading about it, and I think makes a lot of sense given the changes that we see today in the technologies changes that we have. Yeah, so I just use like few lines, just few lines in one paragraph to explain that, but there are a lot of information out there, and if you find something that is interesting, you can send it my ways as well. And if you have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them as well. Cool. Next thing is actually in the next major release, we are going to deprecate probably two things. One is the InfluxDB, and this is something that I guess we missed to do earlier this year. Apparently, and I wasn't aware of that, prior to Prometheus, we use Influx. Now we have Prometheus, there's no need for Influx. So we in this 12.6, we'll need, so first of all, the process on deprecating something in GitLab is, first you need to announce on that, and only in the major release you can deprecate it. So ideally, the announcement for the deprecation of Influx should have announced earlier, but we'll do it on 12.6. And apparently, in the discussion that I had with Ruben, he suggested to deprecate the Ruby string interpolation, and he's suggesting to replace it with, it's called the liquid template, something like that. Basically, the change here is that using this this new template, customers will be able to pass variables to when they're creating their custom dashboard. However, the format need to change. So the format with the percentage that you see in the description here, this is not something that the liquid template can use. So for now, we will support both cases. So we support both the string interpolation and the liquid template format. But if and when we will deprecate the string interpolation, this means that if we have users or customers that are using that format, it will not work. So I wanted to understand if you think that there is any risk here as we do that. I mean, we are going to announce it. We are going to make sure customers are aware. It's rather simple change. If we want to make sure it is, if something is broken, we need to change it. It's just to remove the percentage and add like the curly bracket, and that's it. That's the entire change. But I wanted to get your opinion on that as well. And I mean, we can discuss this in the following meeting if you think that there is something that is, you know, can help our customers, or there is any concern. Okay. Moving to Jose. I think you're next.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify a quick point regarding the supporting multiple alerts. So I think we already had a small discussion regarding this particular thing. But basically is that we have two scenarios for supporting multiple alerts. One is that we have multiple metrics inside a single panel, and each alert will correspond to a single metric. There's another scenario where you have only one metric, but you want multiple alerts for that given metric. So for example, you want maybe to have multiple alerts that warn you about memory consumption. So you have one for 1 gigabyte, one for 2 gigabytes, one for another for 4 gigabytes. So in this case, the latter one, we cannot support it because the backend does not support it, if I understood Ryan correctly. But the former one, we can support. So for this iteration, we could ship the former one, but I'm not sure if that's what we want to do in this release. Dub, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So again, we can support if you have like multiple alerts, multiple metrics or a single metric.
Multiple metrics, multiple alerts. So one metric per alert.
One metric per alert.
Yeah.
That's good, because I think in the previous release we had the support of multiple metrics on chart. What the next thing is to make sure users can alert on those metrics. So I think this is more important than having like the same alert on the same, multiple alert on the single metric. I think it's less important. So that's what at least I expected. I wasn't thinking about the other scenario, which is a valid scenario. Maybe worth adding another issue and schedule it for one of the future iteration, and I can do that.
Excellent, thank you. Diresh, I think you're next.
Yeah. So I need some backend help with updating the environment search API. So a little bit of background about this. So the environments dropdown in the monitoring dashboard currently only shows 20 items. And if there are more than 20 environments, you won't be able to see that. So in order to improve the experience, we're adding a search box over there to look up for environments. However, the backend API right now only returns the name, but we need more attributes as along with the name. So if somebody from backend can take a look at that, that'd be really helpful. Should be a fairly straightforward change, but it'll be risky if I do that. So somebody from backend, I should probably do that. And that's all. Over to Matt.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure someone can take a look at that. I'll talk with everyone, see who's available. Okay, so that's the end of our agenda that people had. So with the remaining time, we usually do one of a few things. We could look at newly created issues. We could look at bugs if we want. I don't know what would be valuable.
I think you know I know that in the last few meetings we went over the newly open issues, but I think that it is less productive unless any other one think otherwise. I think it's worth talking about what people are working today. Maybe go over the existing issues in 12.6. Just go over quickly and see if there is any blockers or any concern.
Yeah, sounds great. I can.
I mean, maybe just before putting the list, you know, if anyone has any concern about any issues that is working on them at the moment, let's raise them. And if not, let's just go over the list until we run out of time.
Okay, I can share. I'm just scanning. No, there's one, at least one that we probably shouldn't talk about as a security thing. So I'll make sure to skip over that one before I share. Okay. There's the board. All right. So I would be talking about this column of 12.6 here. Maybe we can just start at the top and kind of work our way
this is
down,
the investigation. Right? This is the investigation for Jaeger. And I don't see that we have anyone assigned to that.
Right.
And if you think nobody will work on that, we may end up moving it for the next iteration. Just investigation. It does not involve any work.
Got it. Okay. So snowplow custom events. So I know Ryan's not here, but I've talked to him about this. All the MRs are merged. He's just kind of verifying it in production that all the data is flowing through as expected. Garage, you did the front end of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I spoke with Raj on this. Oh, Raj, you're here.
Yeah. Raj is, Ryan's not. He did the back end. Yeah. So, yep. So he's just doing some more verification on this one. All right. This next one. Go.
Yeah, it's the legend for the.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about this. So we broke this down into a couple of MRs, and few of them are in. And I think the last MR is in review right now. And yeah, that's all.
Nice. Okay. I don't think Ruben's here.
Yeah, he's not here. He's not here. Yeah.
I think he is working on this.
Yeah. I spoke with him today. He said he's working on this one.
Excellent. Okay, here's the next one. Close some of these.
got a an MR in on this. It's been through a round of reviews. Thanks to Raj and Ruben for that. Made some changes, and it looks like it's assigned back to me now. So I need to see what the comments were, but I anticipate this one.
This is both front end and back end, right?
Yeah, there's a front end and back end component to it. The front end is just passing the query text back through to the back end.
Okay.
We may need some user interface assistance on this because when we throw the feature flag, then we'll need the ability to pick, do you want custom metrics, or do you want just to pick one metric and alert on that? So
okay.
Anyway, so
this is a release post item, so I need to know
yep.
if it will get merged, because we need to create a release post for that.
Will do. I'll keep you updated.
Okay, thanks. How's this one? And a few of these we can flip through them. Okay. Logs endpoint. There's a this is Ryan's working on this one too. Talked to him earlier this week about it. I think, oh, this was the original MR, but this is the one that he's working on. So he has an MR, he's just, it's still kind of in progress. So
okay.
this one's in progress as well. I think Mikolaj is looking at this one. He said, I'll have to follow up again. I think he had some questions on it.
There's some question, I think, around the license here. And I think if this is the release, if this is the issue, yeah, I asked about the front end issue, which, yeah, I open and schedule it for the next iteration. You see the comment here, but I saw that there is an MR on that, so I'm not sure if someone is working on it for this iteration, and if so, let me know. So because this is also doesn't have the release post item, but if it will have like both front end and back end, this is definitely we require a release post.
Okay. All right, here's the next one. Search chart settings. This
Yeah,
was,
that's the parameter, the settings on Elasticsearch. I don't think, I see that there is an MR, but it's not, I'm not sure it's related to that one. Yeah, basically the concern that I've raised is what will happen when Elasticsearch will run out of capacity, this space, and how can we make sure it will not happen.
Okay. Good. Okay, this one.
Miguel is not here.
No.
It was in verification. So
yeah. So I assume it's, yeah. Okay. So that's good. This one, I think, yeah.
It's about fixed side.
Yep, it is. And there's already an MR open. It's in review. So that's where this one is.
Okay.
I've got one other thing to bring up, this tangential, I think, to this particular deal. I know we talked about copying or being able to share Prometheus clusters between projects or whatever. And I know that Sean was working on or entered an issue the other day, and I said, we bang out this MR. So I made an MR that when you put in a Prometheus cluster that has the same URL and certificate and token, then as some other cluster, it would just copy all that information from the other cluster and, make it look like you've got Helm already installed and Prometheus and all those kind of things installed. Now, there's definitely a lot of work, a little more work at least associated with making those things sync up. But it was, I mean, it was just basically for, just a discussion point for, is this a way we want to be able to share these clusters between projects, or, and I'll just kind of pose that to you, Dove.
It's important, the discussion to have. Not sure we have enough time for that. Maybe we can raise it in the next meeting, and I will reach out, because we need to understand what are the scenarios that we have here. I mean, we're talking about like, so
This was the absolute minimum amount of work I could do to make it work on my local box. So, but I think it's a good point of discussion. I'll mention you in the issue that I attached that MR to, and we can have a discussion there.
Yeah, I think probably there are multiple levels of, how can we make sure it will, like, it's kind of like cross cluster replication thing or something like that. But probably there are multiple levels where we can take it, and maybe it's worth having a discussion, see what's the minimal thing and how can we communicate it for our user. What are the scenarios that they can use it? Definitely an important one.
Yeah.
Agree.
This was just to, allow me to have the same cluster associated with multiple projects on my local dev box, which I absolutely had to have.
That's a good improvement. Yeah. Thanks for raising that. But let's talk about it in the next one. I think it's worth discussion. Yeah.
Good. Sorry, I had to stop sharing, so I'm making sure I didn't open up the wrong issues here. So, okay, we just have a few minutes left, so we can walk through a couple more.
Maybe some issues that the people are on the call here, so they can maybe comment.
Yeah.
We'll probably be more productive.
There's this one, David. It's assigned to you.
Yeah, I think is there any comments on the bottom of that? Last time we talked about this, it was like, well, we don't know exactly what we want to do here.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we talked about this last week, I think.
Okay. I don't have any update on that. I'll rattle some cages on that and see if I can figure out where we need to go with it.
All right, thanks. Kirsty?
Yeah, so I'm just starting to look into that one. Mikolai mentioned that it's very similar to an MR he has open, so I'm going to take a look at what he has. There may be some stuff I can borrow from there.
Okay. This one, feature flag, it's not assigned to anyone. Backend issue. We'll have to take a look at that. Miguel, Jose, this embed charts.
It should be merged in the next couple hours. I was just revising it because I got a red pipeline, but it's pretty much done. Just waiting on a green pipeline.
Great. I'm just kind of scrolling through to look for ones that are assigned to people on the call. This is the one that Kirsty had been looking at. Community contributor had created or started an MR, has a fix for it, but doesn't have all the supporting like.
Yeah, it's just missing a change log.
Yeah. So, it'd be nice if we can help that person get this pushed through. So, there's some discussion about that in the S-Monitor channel if you're interested. Here's some problem validation ones.
Two of them, yeah. One for the research and one for the issue.
Okay. And then I think we're out of time. I guess we can talk about this last one.
There's that API caching behavior thing. Obviously put the wrong, or workflow label on there. It needs to be workflow in dev rather than in dev.
Okay.
But so I've made a reactive caching for doing chunked reactive caching so that the front end can fetch, the rows that have changed, the new rows from the logs, instead of having to pull the whole set of logs every time. So I'm probably a day away from having that to the point where it's got tests and it's ready to be reviewed. But I've discussed a little bit with Adrian on the approach that I'm taking. So I think it's got legs.
Okay. We're out of time. I don't know if anyone has any other last issues they want to just highlight, or otherwise we can call it there. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we will talk to you all soon. Have a good rest of your day.